We were pretty famous back in high school.
Trust us. Had a whole future ahead of us, but now we suck.
All that potential now is flowing in the aqueducts.
Through the sands of time, many did forget.
But now our time has come to resurrect. But a podcast?
Sad I know, but can you blame us?
We are desperate to be much more than high school famous.
Yeah, if you don't raise yourself, who's going to raise you?
Jesus.
Besides your parents, I guess, originally.
Yeah, that's
debatable.
Debatable.
I mean, they kept you alive for the first so many years before you could start taking care of yourself.
And after the first it's not that I died after that point. It's just that I could then take care of myself.
Yeah, at that point, you had risen.
Yes, like the many loaves before me.
Well, one loaf before you, one loaf after you.
Well, there's only one. What do you mean? Only
in your family of loaves.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
There's only that means I have one. What does one loaf represent? Both my parents?
No.
Are you talking about my siblings?
Yes.
See, I was talking more generationally than not my siblings. I mean,
yeah, it's just weird that one of your siblings is really a loaf.
Big time loaf.
Mm-hmm.
Not even sliced.
No, just a big old lump. I mean, is
he a lump of coal?
He's more like just uncooked dough.
Yeah. What do they say? I mean, bump on a log. What are other terms for like laziness? Well, I mean, besides like, you're just useless or you're not contributing to society or whatever else you might say. But yeah, bump on a log. A loaf of bread's new, or uncooked dough is
Couch
also
potato.
new. Yeah. You're barely a smattering of ingredients.
Yeah.
If that's,
Yeah, I was trying to think of something like an ingredient that like doesn't really add anything.
Onion?
Dude, you back off of onions. You and your onion hatred. I will not stand for it. I will currently sit for it.
That's all I would expect from you. And
Yeah.
I have made dishes where the recipe calls for onion, and I have not included the onion. And guess what? The dish remains delicious.
Yeah, but just imagine the heightened deliciousness that it would have had you put the onions in. Like, you don't even know what you're missing. It could have this is good. I could eat this again just like this, or give or take this meal altogether. But it was good. I'm not unsatisfied with the meal. But had you put onions in it, you may have creamed yourself.
Well,
in
only
the
if
pants.
only if the recipe requires cream, and I happen to spill some during the process of cooking. But I've had the same dish or dishes that I have in mind with onion. I honestly don't really notice a difference. And if not including the onion means it's less money. It means it's less work and less chance I will cry for that reason while cooking.
Onions breaking the bank since 17 additional digits.
Ever since the huge hike in onion prices?
Onions are so cheap.
They are very
find onion.
You can just find an onion?
Yeah, you can just find onion.
Walk around and oh look.
They're just anywhere.
Just a bunch of onions lying around. What lazy that's another one. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Found onion. That's a term for a lazy person.
Oh.
What a found onion.
Yeah.
But I think that not one individual onion will break the bank, but compile the savings by avoiding the purchases of onions over the years. It'll add up.
Well, with the amount
quick.
you use onions, you could probably buy one onion for the year.
Yeah, but if you cook with onions all the time, which a lot of recipes call for onion.
Oh yeah.
Then you're spending a pretty penny on onion.
I would say some of the most delicious recipes.
But you've never tried them without onion, I'm sure. So how do you?
I mean, because if I get something and it says it's in there and I think this is delicious, I'm not going to change the recipe. I'm not going to start taking out ingredients and say, let's see if it's also good this way.
Yeah, but I think that onion is such a weird background ingredient.
Delicious.
It's not like I'm making spaghetti and skipping the spaghetti sauce. or skipping the pasta noodles. That's like a main ingredient that is what people think of. It's a required ingredient for it to be qualified as spaghetti, for example.
Right.
So
Well,
I'm
see,
not,
you'd be the kind of guy who would make onion rings without the onions.
I wouldn't make onion rings.
just
Why would you
make
say I would
ring
make
batter.
onion rings? That would
Just make
probably be
battered
delicious.
rings.
Have you ever had batter? It's great.
Yeah, I've had
It's delicious.
so much.
I can
You know
tell.
what's great with batter?
What's
When
that?
there's onions inside of it.
Every kind of batter?
Oh yeah, any kind of batter. You can put
French toast batter? You would put onion.
Sure,
you
that's
would,
just eggs.
yeah, but you would dip onion in that and cook it.
Onion with that'd be good.
You would do that over a nice thick piece of bread.
Well, you can't cook over a piece of bread. It has to be in a pan.
What if the onion
It's okay,
was
you
resting?
can laugh if you thought it was funny.
I'm trying not to. What if the
acceptable.
onion was? What if the onion was resting on top of the bread? It could cook that way,
I mean, it would
and the bread
warm
was
it
cooking.
slightly. Yeah, it would warm.
That's what
it.
cooking is. You make something warm. That's all
I
it
mean,
is.
I would say hot.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
It starts off warm and it gets hot.
It
So
depends on how it doesn't always start off warm. Depends on where you get it from. If it was in the fridge, it starts off cold.
sure. I mean, the process of yeah. I mean, as you're cooking it, it's going to get warm before it gets hot. That's what I meant. I didn't mean the state.
I can just tell in your head, you're like, is this worth it? Is this worth trying to argue that point?
But
Let's just agree.
let's just agree. Things are warm before they get hot when you're cooking.
Yeah.
Not prior to them being added to the heat source.
Yeah. I mean, they might be.
They might, yeah. You may pre-warm some of your ingredients before you cook them. People do that all the time. You brown your hamburger before you often use it in other, in the rest of the mixture to make the final dish, right? So the hamburger, you don't know what I said. So
No,
the
I was writing
hamburger-
something down.
So the hamburger, by the time it's thrown in to be cooked with the other ingredients, it's already hot or warm, at least, hopefully, from being browned.
Hamburger is a type of food made of
Beef.
made of I would say shredded beef, but yeah. So
Minced?
hamburger, it's
Ground
beef. That was the word. We found it at the same time. It's amazing.
We did. I know. It's like they're just
no. A hamburger
was
is
on the ground. The answer was laying around like a pile of onions.
Hamburger is a specific type of thing you make of ground beef. So hamburger is already. Yeah, so you're talking about heating ground beef into the form of a hamburger?
No. I'm just calling it hamburger, I guess, when I meant to say just beef. You brown the ground beef.
I was being an asshole.
Yes, I could tell. Very browned asshole. You're not one to you no longer use the bleaching tool, do you, for your asshole?
I never have.
Which means you still don't do it. Like you no longer do it.
I bought it. I never used it.
It was a gift. It was gifted to you, and you're like, you played nice. You're like, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I've always wanted one of these.
It was a secret Santa gift.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, that's great that you got this. My old one is worn out. I was meaning to replace it, so thank you. Is what you said to the gifter. It was your mom.
If I ever am in a situation where I shit my pants, I don't think I want to say it like that. I think I want to say I browned my trousers. I think that just sounds better.
Yeah, but then they would be warm.
Been a trouser browning.
Does that mean you're not wearing underwear?
Well, I mean, it's not gonna stay in the underwear. It's gonna work its way out.
If you know what you're doing, it'll stay in there real good.
I mean, I was on a bicycle at the time, so it's everywhere.
It is. It's in probably got in some of your spokes, not in, but on.
Yeah.
And those little baseball cards you keep back there probably got a little bit of a smearing too.
We know where my baseball cards are, Sean.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they're in an album in your trunk. That's right.
They're in a shoebox in my trunk.
Sorry. Even less.
Yeah. They're they're even in worse condition.
When's the last time you looked at those? Because with all the exposure to various temperatures throughout the years, do you think there's any warping or they're just destroyed? What's happening?
They're packed in there pretty good.
So
much like the brown in my trousers, they are packed in there tight. So they're
But like
they're
just like you
still-
said, they're not going to stay in there forever. They're going to get everywhere, especially when you're
Oh,
on
yeah,
a
like-
bicycle transporting your baseball cards.
yeah, like if I take a turn just wrong and that shoebox slides and pops open.
Yeah, it'll be just
They're
like when you
everywhere.
shit your pants
Mm-hmm.
on a bicycle, on the same
I
bicycle.
don't shit my pants, Sean. I brown my trousers.
That's right. It's a new term.
Yeah.
Boy, that man, he's a real trouser browner. That's what I'm going to start calling you.
Somebody said like I overheard somebody saying, check yourself before you wreck yourself recently.
Yeah, I think that's sound advice.
Yeah. But it made me think of like, I want to come up with like new sayings that kind of have that same cadence.
Okay.
Like-
just a replacement to freshen it up.
Yeah. Well, and they don't necessarily have to mean like, watch what you're saying. But like, so the example that I thought of was, you need to wet yourself before you pet yourself.
So this is not
You don't want to
this
raw
is-
dog yourself.
But this is not to replace.
No,
the
it's not to
saying,
replace. I just want to make additional sayings that have that same cadence.
But the meaning is not translatable.
No, they're different. They're completely different sayings. And
Okay.
meanings,
You just
but they
want it to have the
that
same rhythm and
feel.
everything.
Yeah.
What is the okay? So say yours again.
What is the point?
What are you doing?
You better wet yourself before you pet yourself.
Okay, so this
Yeah.
is I then when after that when you said you
Lubrication.
don't want to raw. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
In the
Use
form of
lubrication.
form of
before-
lotion or KY, something like that.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
spit.
Some motor oil
Another person.
is well eventually if you do it right,
Yeah.
then yeah.
I mean, you can.
You got to put it. You got to put in the work beforehand. You know what I'm saying?
I always know what you're saying.
You got to wet them before they can wet you.
Right.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's
Wet
just
me,
like-
wet you.
Yeah.
Wet me, wet you.
Wet me, wet you. It's just like just
Show me the money.
trying to. It's like you're sanding sandpaper. Otherwise, it's like, oh, the sandpaper's too rough. Let me smooth it out with some sandpaper.
Just rubbing two rocks together.
No, I'm talking about sandpaper. Is sandpaper made of rocks, or is it made of rock's enemy, paper? It's in the name.
I mean, it's little tiny rocks on paper. So yeah.
What's the cutoff point between sand and rock? How big can a grain of sand get? How small can a rock be before they're indiscernible?
I guess it's the same thing of when does it no longer a mountain and becomes a boulder? I don't know, or a hill.
No, a boulder is
made of
like
different
a
things.
separate. The boulder isn't like connected to the
Right.
earth.
Okay,
It's just
so when is
gravity is
it,
holding it to the earth.
when is it just a rocky hill versus when is it a mountain?
When is it a pond versus a lake, for example?
We've had that discussion.
I know that was I brought that up for a reason.
That's quite a callback.
I know it's so far back. I don't remember how far back it was. The distance from this episode to that episode could be a pond across or a lake diameter, maybe even a small ocean. One of the seas, of which there are I don't know how many.
At least it's at least in the single digits.
At least.
Mm-hmm.
Zero's even a single digit. So, even
Technically.
if there were none,
Mm-hmm.
even once the sun implodes and we either get sucked in with it or we get cast out and we free float into space and the oceans become no more, we will still have a single digit of seas on this spinning ball of wonder.
It's interesting that you say something along those lines, Sean, because I read something a minute ago that's kind of
While
a
we were-
common
While we were on the
misconception
podcast?
about space. It was just before we started.
Oh,
But there's kind of a common misconception about space in the fact that, when astronauts are in orbit,
go on.
they're only weightless because they're in free fall around the Earth, not because they are far away from its gravitational pull.
I knew that.
Well, not everybody did.
So that's true, everyone. Those who think that if you're in space, you just are not subject to any sort of gravitational pull, you're incorrect. Just like when astronauts are going to the moon, they get themselves on the right trajectory with the right velocity to then just free fall to the moon. So they are not It seems like they are weightless, but it's just because they are falling toward the moon. That's exactly
It's just that
why.
you can just fall in any direction in space, pretty much.
Yeah. And
But
eventually you would get close enough to some object that would then pull you into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll be welcomed with open arms.
Yeah. Just like, Michael Corleone, when he got brought, they sucked him back into the mafia and he didn't want to be in it, but he got too close, For example, the International Space Station, the Earth's gravity is nearly 90% as strong as it is at the surface.
Of the station?
I'm assuming the surface of Earth.
Oh, the whole surface? Like any part of the surface you pick, the gravitational pull is the same?
I think it's an average.
Gotcha. So the gravity, is it like a simulated gravity on the space station?
Objects orbiting in space would not remain in orbit if not for the gravitational force, and gravitational fields extend even into the depths of intergalactic space.
You're reading these, right?
Okay.
And they're being presented as common misconceptions. What is the misconception about what you just read? You know what I mean? Like let's cover
they're
that
weightless because they're weightless because it literally was the first sentence. Astronauts
we're still on the
weightless
same
because
thing.
they are in free fall around the Earth, not because they are far away from the Earth's gravitational pull.
I thought that
that was just more information.
Got it. I thought you had moved on to some other factoid. I'm like,
I will let you know when I've done this. I have nothing to write. I don't know why I picked up my pen.
Old habits die hard. You were once a penman.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means.
A common misconception about you is that you were never a penman. That's the first thing people bring up when I mention you. Just a unsliced loaf stuffed with onions. Just terrible.
You don't like an onion bun?
Unenjoyable. I do like an onion bagel.
Hey, there you
versus like a plain bagel.
Yeah. Plain bagels are just boring.
They are. But I don't really go for the everything bagel. Because A, I call bullshit, and B,
it's definitely not
my favorite flavor.
The everything bagel, it's enjoyable sometimes, but I think in the end, it's just too much.
Well, a lot of it can fall off.
True.
You know what I mean? That's another problem with the everything bagel. A lot of the other bagel flavors I've tried, the outer or inner flavor elements are a little more secured.
Yeah. I enjoy a
this
good
is like
cheese bagel.
Yeah, that's good too. I think that's my primary go-to.
Yeah.
The other day, I went into a Bruegger's and got myself a bagel sandwich, and I chose that style of bagel.
Nice.
To secure its inner the ingredients that identify what type of a sandwich it was.
The ingredients?
Yes, not as opposed to the outgredients, which would be the bagel itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's more of an outgredient.
Correct. But in a family of outgredients.
Right.
Like all the different bagel choices. The egg is the outgredient of the omelet, for example.
Right.
Yeah. And the crust is the outgredient of the calzone or pie.
Well, the surface of the pie is also part of its outgredient.
Which is part of the crust. Yes? The top of the pie is pie crust.
Okay. I'm thinking of like a pie, like a
chicken
pie
pot pie?
No, like a French silk pie doesn't have a pie crust over the top of it.
Like a key lime pie, French
silk.
Gotcha. I was thinking like apple, peach, rhubarb,
cherry.
Those types of pies.
Right. Garbage pies.
The pies that no one should like.
You heard it here first, Sean, listeners. Sean.
That's right, everyone. I
heard it here first, Sean.
I heard first what I said. Eventually, it got to others, but that's the fault of the speed of sound. The limits of the speed of sound. 700.
I try to write stuff down really fast, and in doing so, I'm like looking at this. I'm like, I'm not going to remember what that says later when I have to actually read it.
I know. I do the same thing. Yeah. And I'm trying to be better about it, but
I'm trying to be better about accepting the fact that you can't read it, or being better about how you're writing stuff down.
I'm trying to be better about how I write stuff down.
Got it.
So that I can be more accepting of the fact that I can't read it. basically I'm trying to write it worse so that it's easier for me to accept the fact that I can't read it.
Got it.
That's why I write in tongues.
Do you want to talk more about ingredients and outgredients, or do you want to do some more misconceptions?
I thought this was a misconception.
The ingredients versus outgredients?
Yeah.
I think it's
thought
a
we were
misconception that, that's not necessarily a misconception. I think it's a damn shame that more people don't talk about outgredients.
I don't think people are even aware of them.
Oh, that might be a misconception, Sean. There's no
It
way
might
we're the
be.
first people who ever thought of outgredients.
You know what? But we're the ones who are going to make it popular. It's like the moonwalk existed before Michael Jackson. He just made it popular.
Yeah. I mean, shit, that dude did it in 1969.
Yeah. But then Michael Jackson got all the kids doing it. All
Yeah.
the little young boys doing the moonwalk.
Right into the courtroom. Speaking of the moon, the dark side of the moon receives about the same amount of light from the sun as the near side of the moon. I think that's a stupid way of describing the near side versus the dark side.
Yeah, why not the light side?
Yeah. Describing the far side of the moon as dark does not mean that it never receives light, but rather that it had never been seen until humans sent spacecraft around the moon, since the same side of the moon always faces the Earth due to tidal locking.
I mean, anyone who would have thought that the side of the moon that faces away from Earth never saw sunlight.
Well, yeah, because
Since the Earth is constantly going around the Earth.
Yeah. So at some point, there's plenty of times that the moon is between Earth and the sun. It happens fairly often. And if we're seeing the same side of the moon every time, dark side
that's why
all the time.
That's why the moon has phases.
Yeah. I thought the moon had phases because of the shadow of the Earth on the moon, right? That's when the Earth that's when the Earth is between the moon and the sun.
That is true. What am I thinking of then? Something else.
There's eclipses.
There's that too. April 8th, one's coming up.
Oh, where?
A total eclipse.
Oh,
Matt, you could just zip on over to Ohio and catch a good glimpse of it if you want. That's within the strip that's
it was
viewable.
A couple years ago here it was viewable.
Yeah,
but I don't think we didn't get the total eclipse here. We got only a partial one here.
Yeah, I know that Ohio. Maybe it was either Ohio or Indiana. I looked up where would be the closest place for me to travel to be able to see it. Like there's a whole strip running like diagonally across the U.S. and so I know someone that works with me is going to go all the way down to Texas versus Ohio because he says that there's better chance of it being more clear skies down there. To have a better chance of viewing it than
you have somebody somebody that's traveling specifically to see the eclipse.
Yes.
That is kind of weird to me.
This is the same person that drove to New York from Minnesota.
Right.
So that he could drive from New York to California and then drive back to Minnesota.
Just because he wanted to do a cross-country drive?
Just because he wanted to drive across the country.
Why wouldn't you? He wanted specifically to use his car?
Yeah.
Let's say in that sense, it would make more sense to fly out and then rent a car and drive across.
He drives an EV. So I think he was all like jazzed about planning his route with EV charging stations along the route and like getting it all, maybe it was like a test. Like, let's see how well I could do this without coming close to running out of juice in my EV.
Seems like a really cool dude.
He is a unique fellow. I'll say that.
Well, I mean, yeah, you have to be careful just in case. You can tell me after how you really feel.
After the eclipse?
After he's dead.
I will wait that long.
Hey, it sounds perfect.
Also, there's a good chance I won't know when that happens. If I'm still working where I'm working when this guy passes away, that means I failed.
Unless he, tragically dies soon, which obviously we're not wishing that.
No, we want him to at least be able to get to Texas for the eclipse on April 8th. After that, I don't care what happens to him.
I remember a while ago, sometimes Neil deGrasse Tyson's kind of a piece of shit every once in a while.
Okay.
Like he's a cool dude. He's smart. He loves to get people involved with stuff, but sometimes his knowledge comes off very pompous.
Yes. Yeah.
So there was a thing where somebody had tweeted a while back about like being excited about the eclipse was going to be over their town and blah blah blah. And he just gets on there. He's like, eclipse happen X number of times a year. They're no big deal. Blah blah blah. And the person's just like, yeah, but not in my fucking town. Like Jesus Christ, dude, get off your little horse. Like, sure, yeah, eclipses are happening everywhere, all over the world, every year. But
yeah, but
you can't see them everywhere.
We're not all Neil deGrasse Tyson that could just like travel anywhere to see them.
Yeah, or just knows where they all are all the time. And it's like
it's a fine line between him wanting to like spread that knowledge and just be informative and things like that, and then just sort of like, you know, like you're being mansplained to,
right?
Or like they're just like he's just talking down to you, like.
Well, and it's the thing of like it's also of like you want people to be excited about what you're excited about, right? But then as soon as somebody gets excited about the thing you're excited about happening near them, you're like, well, actually.
Yeah, just say, like, that's awesome. I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, I'm glad you're excited for it. Yeah, I'm glad you're excited for it. I hope you get a great view. Like all that shit. Obviously, don't look directly into it.
Yeah, get your special approved whatever glasses that you
your
can
3D goggles from the fucking movie theater.
That I don't think that's ill-advised. For the record, don't go to the movie theater. First of all, don't steal movie theater 3D glasses.
Why?
And because those are for the movie-going public.
Yeah, but then if you have them, then you just bring them with you every time. Now you just have a pair. Now they don't have to give you a pair every time you go.
You know, I always just toss them in the thing.
Are 3D movies still really a big thing? Is that still happening?
You can still see plenty of movies in 3D. Yeah. I
just honestly don't think it adds much to the experience.
It all depends. If it's done right, it can be cool. I remember you and I saw Fury Road in 3D, and I remember like the use of there's always that gimmicky part of it where stuff's jumping out at you, but
the depth stuff is way better.
Yeah, that's what I like about it when it's used that way, not like, whoa, this looks like it's right in front of your face.
Right.
Yeah, because then I get scared and then I brown my trousers.
Every time. I have browned my trousers before.
Yeah. That happens when I go to like a kid's movie in 3D.
Yeah. Like I sat on your lap and browned your trousers.
Yeah. And while you were on my lap, I somehow browned your trousers.
Well, it's because I had taken my trousers off and put them underneath you.
Yeah, because
otherwise, how would I have browned yours?
Because you wanted there to be some sort of, not necessarily a barrier between me and the seat. You wanted to make it so that your browning was more in direct contact with the movie theater seat for some reason. No, wanted to ruin that.
My browning was on your seat, on your lap. I browned your trousers.
Yeah, but then wait a minute.
I put my trousers underneath you. You browned yours, then seeped into mine. Therefore, you browned both yours and mine. And then I also browned yours.
So you removed your trousers in order to sit on my lap.
Yeah.
And all this was in 3D.
I mean, all of life is in 3D.
That moment, I remember having a lot of depth and very little fury.
Whole lot of road.
And I wet myself before I pet myself.
Mm-hmm.
Bucket of popcorn.
Dude, I had another one that I can't think of now.
That's perfect timing.
What?
That perfect timing.
Of what? Having one that
now is when you can't think of it.
Well, no, I couldn't think of it earlier too. When I remembered the wet yourself before you pet yourself one, and I know I had another one in my head earlier in the day that I now don't remember.
You better jet yourself before you set yourself.
They don't have to.
Setter.
It doesn't have to all be jet and wet and bet and stuff like that. There can be other words that rhyme.
You better wet your jet before you pet your pet.
Wet. It doesn't have to be wet. It doesn't have to rhyme with wet every time.
I thought you wanted it to be wet. That was the point of your.
Well, it doesn't have to rhyme with wet every time. You don't have to make a new one that also rhymes, has the same rhyme scheme.
So you're saying the one you said doesn't have to rhyme with wet. So you could say like you should wet yourself
you know
before you.
You already know what you're doing. Shut up. Sean, you need to check yourself right now.
Before what? I wet myself? Wait a minute. So you say you should like pee your pants before you masturbate?
I mean, that is an option.
It's kind of what you're saying.
I mean,
what?
There's other ways.
Yourself.
There's other ways to make your appendage moist, as it were.
Yeah.
To not cause micro tears due to friction.
Gotcha.
That's medical.
Buffets are great for that. Lots of foods and condiments on display. A lot of access. The sweet and sour sauce.
Sometimes I just don't.
Delectable.
I just don't know where your mind goes with things sometimes.
I'm talking about sticking my dick in a lot of buffet food.
I mean, honestly, I don't think the buffet food would be any less hygienic.
Then what?
Than it currently is. No, I wouldn't.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You adding your dick to the buffet wouldn't make the buffet any more gross.
That's a compliment to me, and I thank you for that.
Or it's just, an uncompliment to how gross buffet food already is, and therefore your dick being also gross.
No.
Doesn't make it any grosser.
No. This is not
your diseased, moss-covered dick. Just the north side of your dick is moss-covered.
It's always facing the same way.
Like a tree, yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how would you tell time when laying down and using it as a sundial? It's got to be the same way every time.
The funny thing is, I used to call it my Rolling Stone. Oh no, that was an iron concentration. I'm sorry, I got rid of that.
Right.
Is it iron? Did I say the right thing?
I don't, dude. It's calcium.
Calcium.
Yeah.
It's common misconception.
I was about to be like, dude, I don't fucking know. And as I was saying, dude, it's calcium.
Common misconception about kidney stones.
Common misconception about me not knowing
and not knowing things.
Knowing it. Yeah.
Hey Matt, speaking of misconceptions, don't you have some misconceptions you want to bring?
Black holes.
Oh, never bleach.
Speaking of black holes,
Bada-bow.
Black holes have the same gravitational effects as any other equal mass in their place. See, the thing is that this list is not telling us what the misconception is. It's just telling us what the actual answer is.
So, are they trying to say that all black holes that are the same size have the same gravitational?
It's just saying anything
effects?
That has equal mass. So if it's, if
well,
they're
good
both,
luck.
If it's,
well, good luck finding something of equal mass as a black
if it's
hole.
a pea-sized thing and a pea-sized black hole, they have the same gravitational effect, is what it's saying.
I don't think.
I'm not saying a pea and a black hole do. I'm saying if in space.
No,
two
it's
things
not
of the same size have the same gravitational effect.
Hold on, though. It didn't say same size. It said same mass. That's very different.
Sorry, yeah.
You can have a very gaseous gathering of particles, or whatever, versus a very dense, rocky surface.
Yeah, they would be much different sizes, I suppose. Yeah.
So yeah, if you had a black hole that was the size of a pea, for example, but then there was some massive planet or star, that had the same mass but was magnitudes larger in physical size, the amount of space it takes up, then yes, those two things could have the same or would have the same gravitational effects.
Right.
But only one has an event horizon. I'll argue that.
Starring Sam Neill.
Because on a star, the party never stops.
Is that a fact?
No, but I just sort of turned the term of a event horizon as like when something fun ends.
Oh.
So since a star doesn't have an event horizon, the party never stops.
Or it's just a really big...
It was a great joke. It was a great joke.
It's just a giant event that it's so large that from one end of it you can see the horizon of the event because it keeps going.
If there was a party that was going on around the entire globe, it would never end.
Right.
Geographically, it would never end. I mean, obviously, there'd be a point where everyone's got to go to bed.
Right.
But people would go to bed at different times. You could keep it going.
Yeah.
Indefinitely. You could definitely keep it going indefinitely.
Right. I was just saying, like, it's so large of a party that
Thank
You know,
you. Oh,
you can't even see the end of it, but you can see the horizon of it.
so you can see as much of the party as you can see?
Yeah, and then it's like the horizon line of the Earth.
That's like saying it stretches as far as the eye can see. The party stretches as far as the eye can see.
There you go.
That's exactly what is the kind of party I like to be at.
Hmm.
But I'll never host one.
Sometimes I just don't know what the fuck we're talking about ever.
Well, the most important thing is that everyone else knows.
Do they?
I don't know if they do, but that's important. It's important that they do. Basically, what we're saying, or Matt, I think what you're thinking or what you mean by that is you don't know where all this comes from. But I think the way we describe things in our little rants and tangents, I think it is in a way that it is digestible and understandable to others that hear it.
Right.
Right? It's not nonsense. We just don't know where it's coming from in our brains.
Yeah, stream of conscious.
Yeah.
I found a different list because that list doesn't give us like what the original misconception is.
And those all seem to be very space related.
Well, I was just specifically in the space section.
Gotcha.
Because we transitioned into it so well, and then out of it, and then not really back into it, but back into it. So these ones are just kind of random. Hey, I don't know if this is really a misconception anymore, but fortune cookies are not from China.
Well,
they're not Chinese.
No, I think that's still probably largely a misconception.
Possibly.
By most people. Just because, like, you learn something doesn't mean everyone knows it.
True.
If it took this long for you to learn it, that means it's much more likely that it's a common misconception to this day.
That it took me this long to learn that most people still find it a misconception?
No, like, let's say, because you're 41 years old.
Shh. Yeah, shut up.
You're 41 years old. And let's say you learned when you were 35 that fortune cookies are not from China.
Okay.
That means that enough people thought that the information about it not being from China didn't get to you until 35 years after you were born.
I hear you.
If it was a commonly known thing, you would never probably have thought that they were from China.
Yeah, they would just teach that in school.
Yeah. They would?
Yeah, Chinese lessons. You don't remember having Chinese lessons in school where you learn about China, specifically China class?
Were they more strict? What makes them Chinese?
I'm going to do you a favor and move on. Despite them being handed out in many Western-based Chinese restaurants at the end of a meal these days, the fortune cookie is not from China. Rather, it was brought to the U.S. by the Japanese. They are rarely found in China. The cookies are the Japanese, and are often seen as a symbol of American cuisine. It's just a weird way to put that sentence after the fucking Japanese comment.
Who can tell?
Wow, dude.
Sorry.
You heard it here first, people. John thinks Asians all look alike.
No, just Chinese and Japanese people.
They really don't.
I don't think Russians look anything like either of those.
Depends on what part of Russia.
Why?
Because there's parts of southern Russia where people they look much more traditionally Asian. Much more traditionally Asian, what you would consider a traditionally Asian-looking person.
Yeah, but there are several parts of Russia where that's not the case.
Yeah, that's why I said depends on where in Russia.
Yeah, well, so what?
I don't remember.
My point still stands.
What was your point?
That I don't think Russians look like Asian. Traditionally, what is thought of as an Asian person?
That's why I said depends on where in Russia.
I wasn't talking about
because some of them will
parts.
look much more traditionally Asian than others, and then other of them look much more European.
Yeah, but I was referring to the parts of Russia where they look,
or they don't,
more European. Yeah, where they don't. That's what I was talking about.
You were talking about a different thing that you didn't specify.
You just didn't let me finish. Yeah, I was getting there.
I'll never let you finish.
I know. You won't even let me wet myself.
Buddha was not fat.
Buddha was not fat? Are
Buddha
you
was
kidding
not
me?
fat.
All the statues depict him as such.
Well, let's talk about it.
Let's discuss it further
Popular
over a
image
nice hearty meal with onion.
of onions. The popular image
Not of
of
onions.
the fat, laughing Buddha with a big, friendly belly is completely inaccurate. This is actually a 10th century folk hero in Chinese lore China, called Budai. And the two
Okay.
have been confused over time. In fact, Buddha was an ascetic, Ascetic,
Say it again? Or spell it again?
Ascetic,
Yeah. Aesthetic?
aesthetic. Was an
I thought
is
there
that
was
how you
another
say, is
E.
that how you spell aesthetic?
I thought there was another E in there.
Maybe
But
that's.
it must be.
I feel like I've probably seen this word before, but sometimes you look at a word and you're like, I have never seen this word in my life.
I thought about that. I thought that about my toes once.
He was an. He prayed under a lotus tree, eating almost nothing to achieve enlightenment. So he was a little skinny guy.
He was
Good little guy.
malnourished. Maybe he had what's that when the stomachs really blow out because of starvation?
Oh,
I forget what that's called. But maybe he was suffering from that.
yeah, maybe. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star was not composed by Mozart. This, to me, is not a common misconception because I've never heard this before in my life.
I was going to say, did people think that? A, B.
Apparently, enough people, it's apparently a common misconception.
Well, I would think, would anyone really believe that? With considering the complexity of his other work, you think that they would think that Twinkle Twinkle Little Star was something he actually like released or wrote?
Well, here's the thing. It has been widely whispered that the classic children's song was composed by the Austrian musician when he was 5 years old.
Okay.
Makes more sense now.
But it was
Actually,
Buddha.
it originated from a French folk song which Mozart composed variations of when he was 25 and 26 years old.
So he sampled it.
That's probably one of the earliest examples of sampling.
Yeah.
Call it song stealing.
Song taking.
Golf does not stand for a misogynistic slogan. Also another one I've never heard of.
I didn't think anything about the name golf.
Well, according to this, there is a widespread misconception that golf stands for gentlemen only, ladies forbidden.
I mean, someone probably came up with that as a joke, cleverly using the letters in the word golf.
Yeah, it's almost any of those things where like somebody has a car brand that you for some reason hate because people are very, very specific about hating certain car brands. So they're like, you know what that stands for. And then they say some dumb thing that was been made up that makes it an acronym.
What was oh gosh, now I'm trying to think of because we had a few friends in high school that
we did
were very Ford specific.
Yeah.
And I thought there was some Found on Road Dead. That's what it was. I couldn't think of what people would say about Ford.
I was trying to think of a Ford one and I couldn't.
Luckily it just came to me. But as far as any others, like I don't know any others. Like I don't know if there was one for Chevy or if there was one for like Dodge or anything like that.
There's one for everything.
They're all fine motor vehicles.
You know, yeah, they're fine. There's certain makes and models that have issues, but all in all, they're the way you can
nowadays,
look at it is,
I don't know if there's really much of a difference nowadays. With
not.
Newer vehicles coming out now, I don't know, they're pretty interchangeable, I would guess.
Yeah.
I don't think
well, if you really look at it, look at the companies, the car companies that are around right now. They're the ones that have been around forever. So they're fine. You know, there's not really a lot of new car companies. And then there's a lot of car companies that have gone away. So
what is Tesla probably the newest one?
Tesla is probably, I would say
Tesla's one of the newer,
in the States at least, it's probably the newest one.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when Scion first came out, but I think Scion's done now too.
I think so.
Because Scion got bought out, I think, by Toyota.
Kia didn't last.
Kia's still around,
right?
No, Kia's
it is.
Yeah.
Why did I think Kia was done?
Kia's big.
Pontiac's gone, right? Isn't Pontiac gone?
I think Pontiac's gone. Saturn's gone.
Yeah, Saturn. I remember that one. Maybe I was thinking of Saturn
Saab.
when I said Kia.
Saab is dead and gone.
Oh, Saab didn't make it, huh?
Um,
But yeah, but like your
a few
Volkswagens,
other ones. Volkswagen's
your
going strong.
Subaru.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I don't know how long Subaru's been around.
Probably longer than we think. I think they started really blowing up in the 80s and 90s, but I think they've been
But
around.
they were
a bit
around
longer
before
than
that?
Yeah.
Could be. Yeah. But I don't think of
We'll
them.
call
I
it,
think of,
Japanese and, Japanese, Chinese, and Korean car companies are all
yeah,
doing
there's like
just fine.
Hyundai and Honda and Toyota and
Kia.
the others. Kia, Sport. It's not a separate company.
Talked about cars.
Wow. Cool.
All right. So that was that one. Vikings did not wear horns on their helmets.
Now I know of that, and I did hear a long time ago that was not true.
It's just not accurate. It was first. It happened in an opera that somebody had done that. Was the first scene of that.
I thought that the first group of ancient Viking remains that was discovered, they all happened to have individually died right next to a pair of horns.
I mean, it doesn't say anything in here about that. It could very well be true.
But they're saying it's the opera?
That's what this is saying. The horns on the helmets for Vikings came from an opera seen by Richard Wagner.
One person saw it?
It was his opera.
But you said it was seen by him.
Scene is spelled SCENE.
Ah.
An opera scene. But
Gotcha.
I guess I can see how not having the words in front of you makes that sound.
It sounded the same it sounds the same. Yeah. Some people pronounce my name that way.
The Great Wall of China is not the only human-made object visible from space. I'm going to read through this because, as far as I know, the Great Wall of China is not actually visible from space. So
okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
None of the Apollo astronauts reported seeing any specific human-made object from the moon. Even Earth-orbiting astronauts can barely see it. City lights, however, are easily visible on the night side of the Earth from orbit. But yeah, as far as I know, you can't actually see the Great Wall of China from space. Well, I even tried looking at it on Google Earth, and you can't fucking find the damn thing. You have to zoom in quite a bit.
It's debatable. There are different arguments about when you, quote, enter outer space and you leave the atmosphere completely. So from the moon, I understand that.
Yeah, that's fucking forever away.
You can still be much closer to the Earth and be in space and maybe get a chance. Spies. But you might be able to see it if you're, basically as close to the Earth as you can get without being inside the atmosphere. Maybe? I don't know. But from the moon, yeah. Why is that the only... Well, we didn't see it from the moon, so that's a lot.
Wow. Clearly, Houston. If you don't see it from the moon, it doesn't exist.
You think that was like an American pride type of a thing?
Landing on the moon?
Well, that was, but denying being able to see the Great Wall of China?
I don't know. Were we having beef with China at some point during the space race?
We're America. We're better than everybody. So I could just see us that's just being like, let's cut down the China as well. On top of beating Russia to the moon, we'll also just make a dig at China and say, we can't see your little wall. What wall?
Do you think it's insensitive to have beef with India?
They won't eat it. They'll just say no, thank you.
That's a good point. Napoleon was not short.
Right, he was average height. Well, I think he was 5'6".
Yeah, I believe he was. The little corporal's height was recorded in French feet, 5'2", which is 5'7" in English feet. This was in fact slightly taller than the average Frenchman at the time.
I didn't know that there were French feet versus English feet.
I think maybe at one point there was, but I don't think so now. Because they do
during Napoleon's time. You think they hadn't used like a the imperial system for?
Well, this is just saying that French people have
smaller feet.
Well, it would be
the French king
would have larger feet, right? Because if it was 5'2",
yes,
their feet would be larger than English people have smaller feet, which would make him seem taller then.
Otherwise, they would say he's like 8 feet tall. Yeah. Do you think that the French foot was based on the length of some sort of like a previous king of France's
A
foot.
person's foot, yeah, maybe.
Well, I know the foot that we all think of, the 12-inch foot, was based on the king at the time, the measurement of his actual foot.
And now we're stuck in that bullshit standard fucking imperial system.
Yeah, I know, and it wasn't
Whereas
based on the
pretty
funny
much
thing is
everybody else in the world, other than a couple other countries, uses the fucking metric system.
yeah, the system wasn't invented by America, which is also hilarious about it. The fact that we're so stubborn about using it still.
Well, yeah, we came to this country to gain independence, but then we're like, but there's certain things we're going to hold on to here. Even though the place we left from has given up that system, we're going to hold on to that.
Yeah, it's like we don't want to come up with our own units of measurement.
Mm-hmm. Like these already work just fine. We're behind.
That's kind of funny. I never looked at it that way before, but now I have.
John F. Kennedy did not identify himself as a donut. I have no idea what this means.
Neither do I.
All right, legend has
I'm no historian.
Yeah, legend has it that because the U.S. president used the indefinite article ein, E-I-N, in his famous announcement to Germany, Ich bin ein Berliner, he actually said that he was a donut. This is not true. His sentence was the standard way for a German to identify themselves as someone from Berlin, as was intended.
I see.
I don't. So what is this supposed to say? I am a donut?
So he was speaking to a German person using German language, and it maybe got around that he accidentally said "I'm a donut" in German. Wow, I'd never heard that before.
Y'all ready for this? All right. 3 kings did not visit the baby Jesus.
Yeah, because that would suggest that like multiple kings would like get along with each other.
Yeah. One of the most retold stories of all time, this account is not actually found in the Bible. Instead, it says that kings might visit the baby, and elsewhere, 3 gifts are described, leading painters to draw 3 kings with presents. But the exact number of kings and the belief that their names were Balthazar, Melchior, whatever, fucking Casper, is nowhere in the Bible. How strange that, the church would do teachings that aren't actually in the Bible.
Well, it's got to be somewhere. Not saying the Bible, but where.
This sounds like it was probably just a story that was passed down. Sometimes just verbal stories get passed down and then become this fucking thing.
Well, that's how all stories used to be passed down. Well, it was important to remember the stories that were told to you as a child, so that you could tell the next generation those same stories, and so on. And that just makes it harder and harder for each following subsequent generation, because then they also have their own stories to tell. So each new generation has more and more stories they have to remember.
Well, and then how many of the stories get slightly modified because either it was remembered wrong or got mixed together with a different story.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. When earthworms are cut in half, 2 baby earthworms are not born.
Well, yeah,
only the front
birth works.
Only the front half may survive. The back end dies. Very few kinds of worms are able to do this. That's all.
So the one just died in childbirth.
Yeah, and it also doesn't grow an additional fucking worm. Oh no, I get what you're saying. I get what it's saying. If you cut it in half, then it becomes 2 worms. But no, earthworms don't have a head on each end.
Right. So
there's an anus.
Hopefully.
Well, definitely.
Hopefully. There could be a birth defect. Oh, this worm was born without an anus. Let's rush it to the NICU stat.
Yeah. Just think about that anytime you eat dirt, people. That's earthworm poop.
I think if you're already eating dirt, I don't think you care what it's made of.
Well, that's a common misconception.
Is it?
Yeah.
Are you a hoity-toity dirt snob?
Yeah, I only eat the best dirt.
I only eat the finest white sand.
I only eat organic dirt.
Don't try to give me any rocks. Organic dirt, huh?
Yeah.
As opposed to GMO dirt?
Yeah, thank you. I was waiting for you to actually make a comment on the fact that I called it organic dirt.
Yeah. Well, I did. Eventually. It was
just took a while.
It just took a while. I'm not all there. I don't have all my faculties.
Why? This is high school famous, John. We should have all sorts of faculties.
Well, I was struggling a bit financially, and I had to auction a few things off. Some of my faculties were sold.
You auctioned them up. You could have just let them go. Instead,
But
you sold them into slavery. Essentially,
if I just let them go, I'm not gonna get any money for them.
Yeah, but you're not paying them either. So you're saving money.
Yeah, I'm saving money, but I also got money for them. That's more money. This is why you're not a businessman.
That's legal, but because because that type of business in this country is no longer legal, Sean.
Look, you know when like you're going to switch mobile carriers and one will offer to buy your old phone and pay off any remaining balance you have?
Yeah, but you
on the
own
carrier
that
you're
phone.
coming from.
You don't own your faculties.
Not anymore. I sold them.
You never owned them to begin with.
What do you think of when I say faculty?
I'm thinking people that work for you.
That's not at all where I was.
Got it?
Because faculties is like your mental...
like the people that work at a school.
That's not...
Inaccurate? I know.
It's not just schools, though.
Okay, sorry. People that work in other places as well. I don't know why I got so, like animated with my body when I was saying that.
Well, because we're on video now.
Other places.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing it for the video.
Gotcha. Sure.
Yeah.
No, your faculties, like maybe I'm not all there mentally.
Like the people that work in your brain.
Yeah. I sold them off.
Yeah, but you don't own them. They work for you.
But that's the brain is part of my body, and you can sell that.
Yeah, you can sell your brain. You can't sell the people that work in your brain.
There are
somebody owns a building. They don't own the people that work in it.
Yeah, there are no people that work in my brain.
Well, you just said you sold off your faculties,
which means there's no people that work in my brain.
Not anymore, but because you sold them off. Yeah,
exactly.
But they were your employees. They weren't. Yeah, they were. You didn't own them. They were your.
You don't know what they signed. You don't know what they signed.
I don't think either way. I don't think what they signed was legal. Then
it's a document. It's signed.
Yeah, but I can get somebody to sign any document. Doesn't mean the document itself is legal. I could write on a piece of paper, "You will kill 5 people," and then they sign it and be like, "Oh, it's legally binding," and then they go murder people. Now I'm an accessory to murder.
Was it notarized?
That's what I'm saying.
Did they validate your parking?
Parking has nothing to do with it.
But did they?
Are you saying they validated it as in like they let me leave without paying, or they just told me I did a really good job at parking?
They they complimented you heavily on your ability to park. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to validate parking now.
Yeah. Like, man, your ability
do you guys validate parking? Yeah, let me follow you out there real quick.
Yeah. You know what?
You did a great job.
I think you're a little bit more on the right side than you are on the left side, but there's plenty of room on either side to open the doors. Yeah. Yeah. Solid work.
Yeah, I see you backed in. Very good. Very good.
You're welcome back here anytime.
Yeah. Just see the attendant to pay on your way out.
Yeah. Now, how many people do you have for sale today?
You can't say that.
This is what the parking people, the people who validated your parking, that's what they asked you. I'm just reenacting.
Why would they ask me that?
Because you were there to sell people.
No, I wasn't. I don't sell people, Sean.
Oh, so you went in there thinking it was another kind of business, and you're like, "Oh, sorry, my mistake. I thought this was something else. And so you're like, "Well, I'm on my way out. Can you validate my parking?"
Well, I was at a place that like I was maybe like eating at a fine establishment that might say validate your parking, or at a hotel. Sometimes they'll validate your parking if you have to park in a certain place.
Gotcha. So hotels are not fine establishments, is what you're saying.
You really just love to twist people's words, don't you?
Well,
are you Chubby Checker? Are you doing the twist?
It's the only thing I can twist without consent.
That makes it sound like you don't even approve of what you're doing to yourself. Like,
well, I don't need to give myself consent.
Is that like
if the law gets to that point,
does it for you? Just
if the law gets to that point where I have to give myself consent, otherwise I could be charged.
I assume by starting the act, you're giving yourself consent.
Hey, you can't make assumptions. That's the whole point of it.
It's non-verbal.
You need a verbal delivery of consent before you can proceed with twisting.
That it'd be a real weird world if it got to that point, right? Where you have to like give yourself consent.
I was just saying that exact same thing.
Yeah, but I said it differently and louder. Wouldn't that be weird?
I validate that.
Think of this crazy thing I just thought of. Wouldn't it be weird if you had to give yourself consent?
To do what?
Anything. May I put this in your mouth? Yeah. Okay. No. Mouth noise. So, yeah.
Mouth noise.
Yeah, I made mouth noises.
Yeah. You didn't ask if that was okay with me.
I don't have to ask for your consent to say things out of my mouth.
But if they're entering my ear, I have to give you consent for you to penetrate my ear.
No, I think that would be more of just like a thing of like out in the public. It's almost freedom of speech. I can say whatever I want. If you happened to hear it, that's not my fault. I have no control over what you hear.
But something that came from your body is entering my body, and I don't want that to happen. I don't like it. I don't consent for this.
I feel like there's a weird thing there of like it came from my body. Like I formed the words. The only thing entering your body is the sound waves that
which were produced by your voice box.
They originated from my voice box, but I don't believe the actual physical waves that have left my mouth are what are actually entering your ear.
Yeah, I don't know the details of how
logistics.
That works. If it's just like a transfer from
like a smell line from a pie in a cartoon.
What kind of pie?
I'm one with a crust all around.
Perfect.
Full and crust and Crustables.
What? Yeah, those are. I've never had one.
Or an Uncrustables, I guess is what
they've been. They've been in my freezer, but I've never had one.
Did you sell them?
No, they were eaten by another human that lives with me sometimes. Visual element.
Is that a joke?
Yeah, that was a dad joke.
Oh,
delivered visually to entice our listeners to watch us on YouTube.
If you watched this, you got that joke this week. If you didn't watch this, listeners, sorry, you're gonna have to at least go to YouTube.
Fast forward the video to the part where I hold up a piece of paper
just before now. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you're hearing this, you've gone too far.
Yeah.
Go back about 60
and you're like,
seconds.
What are they explaining?
Yeah. Go back about 60 seconds and you'll know what we're talking about.
If we can't get someone to email us, I don't think someone's going to listen to this and then also go to YouTube and try to find the joke I held up.
Yeah.
Here's the challenge.
Okay.
If you watched this on YouTube, which again, if you're listening to this, the YouTube version will not be out at the same time.
True.
But if you watch this on YouTube, email back to us the joke I held up in this episode. That's the way to prove that you watched this on YouTube.
I mean, that or just emailing us and saying that they watched it, then we would know that it. I mean, that would be
that could be a lie.
It was because of this, but
no, that could just be them.
You're saying listeners, just a listener could do it. Gotcha.
Yeah, they have access to the same instructions by listening.
Unless I cut it out, I won't. But unless I did,
well, I could also cut it out.
Yeah, but then what's the point if you cut it out?
Then no one even this is not even in. No one even hears this. That's what.
Yeah, but if you cut it out of the video part of it, that defeats the whole purpose that you're trying to make.
I know.
Yeah, I'm saying if I cut it out of the audio part, at least then we negate the people just listening to the audio only version from cheating and emailing.
But if you cut it out of the audio version, that would not entice new people to check us out on YouTube. It would only be.
I'll just cut out the part about the email.
Oh.
Just that part about emailing that you read it.
But why?
I would say
why? But that would
because you were saying that by saying just email us and say you watched it.
Yeah.
No. And you were saying that people who are just listening could lie and email and say they watched it.
No. I didn't say email us and tell us you watched us. That's what you said. I said
but then you said no because people would cheat. And I said, well, then I could cut that part out so that only the people watching would hear us say that. Okay. Hear me say that even if you just watched it, email us. But the people listening only wouldn't hear that part. So therefore, they wouldn't cheat and say they watched it. Holy fuck.
Well, I think we all know what happened here.
Who, me and you?
Do you want to hear a different dad joke from the one I held up? You don't even know what the one I held up said.
I don't. I didn't have time to read it because I don't have a pause option here.
When my dad asked me what day it is, I told him March 1st. But then he just stomped around the room and asked again.
It's pretty crazy that kid has such a hold over his father that he can demand his father to march first and his father will do it.
No.
Did I mishear you?
No, you're right. My dad asked me what day it was.
Yeah.
Huh.
I thought I heard that correctly.
You did. I remembered it incorrectly, even though I just read it. So this dad must have no access to a calendar anywhere.
Yeah.
If his only way to obtain the date is by getting the information from his child.
Mm-hmm. I think we
Would
know
you- I mean-
where's the brown trousers in that family.
See you next Tuesday.
Bye.
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 If you have a question, complaint, or threat for Sean or Matt, you can reach us on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, X, or Instagram at HSFamousPod, or you can email the show at highschoolfamous@gmail.com. No animals were pleasured during the making of this podcast, despite our best efforts. All hail our Lord and Savior.
Sometimes I just don't know what the fuck we're talking about.